Good evening and welcome to Outdoor Activities for the Whole Family. We have a couple housekeeping rules. My name is Candace Wu and I am the Program Manager for Pediatric Community Outreach. To get us started on the webinar, we do have some things that we do need to discuss. As mentioned, the webinar will be recorded. So you will be receiving a recording of the webinar through your email from being registered, as well as it being posted on the YouTube channel for Atlantic Health System. Please use the Q&A section to ask your questions. We will have a Q&A at the end. And we cannot diagnose or treat during the webinar, so please avoid using names or personal information in your questions. I now would like to introduce you and turn it over to Heidi Maramo.
Okay, let me just share my screen. Oh. I'm not able to share my screen.
You're good now.
Okay. There we go. Okay. I'm gonna do it from viewpoint. Okay. All right. Everyone can see that. It looks okay. All right. So yes, we are going to be talking about outdoor activities for the whole family. My name is Heidi. I am an occupational therapist. I've been an OT for about 5 years now. I currently practice out of Hackettstown Medical Center. We're located up on the 4th floor in outpatient. I currently service pediatrics, adult orthopedics, as well as pelvic floor clients. All right, so we're going to go over what is occupational therapy, because I'm sure everyone is wondering what that is. We'll go more into the specifics of fine motor skills, which includes activities of daily living or self-care skills. We'll go into sensory processing, and then of course we'll go into a lot of outdoor activities, also some indoor activities that you can do that will help with all of the skills that all of our pediatrics need, maybe over the summer or just throughout the school year. And then of course we'll end with some question and answers. Okay, so pediatric OT focuses on improving skills that are required to complete daily activities. Okay, so we'll talk about fine motor skills, we'll talk about activities of daily living, and we'll talk about sensory processing, all within, the realm of pediatrics for the most part. Okay. So fine motor skills are related to the small hand muscles. These small hand muscles need to be strong so we can accomplish a lot of goals, such as opening zippers, tying our shoes, or holding a pencil. Visual motor skills are highly linked to the skill of handwriting. The brain and the muscles of the hands need to communicate to create visual representations or handwriting or drawing, things along those lines. And there are multiple aspects to visual motor. These are only some of them, but they include visual closure, motor coordination, visual processing, visual spatial. They're all related. And then of course, we need to use both of our hands for many activities. So that is called bilateral coordination. It also focuses on force gradation, which is how much force you are using when you're coloring, when you're pouring liquids, when you're eating, all of those lovely things. So one of the things occupational therapy speaks about, sorry, my lights are going to continue to go on and off, is activities of daily living. So these are really your things that you need to do every single day. Those are the occupations of children. Obviously, occupations of children versus adults are going to vary, and they're going to vary along the lifespan. So one of them includes bathing or grooming. So obviously, when children are younger, they're very passive in this, but they allow bathing and grooming to be done for them, basically. As they get older, they're able to use the toothbrush on their own. They're able to, bathe themselves in the bathtub. They're able to shower on their own. So just increasing their independence with everything. Same thing goes for dressing. So first, dressing is a very passive activity. then they're able to hold their arms out. They're able to undress themselves. Children always want to be able to undress themselves before they can dress themselves. Then we get into higher cognitive functioning of dressing appropriate for the weather, following multi-step directions to tie their shoes, things along those lines. We'll talk about functional mobility. It starts with just sitting up on their own, rolling over, then we move to crawling, we move to walking, running, hopping, jumping, skipping, more of those higher level coordination activities that we do as adults as well. Then, of course, we have eating, not necessarily the process of chewing and swallowing. That's more related to speech. But here we talk about using our own fingers to pick up the food. So, using just 2 fingers to do that, using a spoon to then scoop the food, or using a knife to cut the food. And then obviously we go further into, kitchen skills and things along those lines. And then, of course, toileting, which is really just much related to, being aware that we have interoception, which is the feeling that we need to use the bathroom, able to use the toilet independently. And then, of course, managing things otherwise in the bathroom related to toileting as well as they get older. All right, so some of the other activities of daily living that are not related to self-care. These are the primary ones for pediatrics that we focus on. Play, obviously, is probably our #1 thing. We've been finding a lot, as kids get older, that, education will start to take the reins, but play is a very important skill, hence why you all are here to find about some more play activities, because we can't always be educating. We can't always be playing. We have to have a nice mix of both. With that being said, education is also important. We want to work on the foundational skills that children will use to access their education. So this could be giving a student something to fidget with so they're able to sit in their classroom better. This could be they sit at the front of the room versus the back of the room to learn the knowledge. And then, of course, we have leisure. This also kind of falls in the category of play. It also kind of falls into the category of hobbies. Probably with your middle schoolers, your older grade levels, they will enjoy more hobbies, whether that be arts and crafts or music or any of those kinds of things. That's where your hobbies are going to lie. But obviously, you need to have a lot of skills for both fine motor, visual motor, to access, for example, playing an instrument. So their OTs really focus on the underlying skills to make larger skills easier and more accessible. Okay, so the other area of occupational therapy that we're going to touch upon includes the sensory systems. So we all learn about our 5 senses, which obviously are touch, so the way you interpret things when you touch them. Auditory, so how you hear things, how you're comprehending what is being spoken to you. Our visual processing, which I kind of already talked about, so how we see things, how we read things, how we interpret them. This is also having to do with seeing things that aren't necessarily present. So being aware that when we open a door, there might be something behind it, or being aware that if I cover half of a letter, that letter is still there. It didn't disappear. It's just being covered by something. Gustatory, which is really just taste, using your sense to recognize when something is maybe not good anymore. Maybe it's moldy, maybe it's gone off. Also recognizing when something's really sweet. Maybe it's too sweet, not something that we should be eating. Olfactory is smell. Again, recognizing when our body is in danger. Sorry, this is going to keep happening. Recognizing when our body is in danger. So if we smell smoke, if we smell, something very noxious, that's when we want to be aware of it. And then the 2 other senses that we don't really talk about include proprioception, which is your body in space awareness. Sounds very complicated, but it really isn't. I always give the example of if you were to close your eyes right now and I were to lift your hand up above your head, you could tell me with your eyes closed that your hand is above your head. Same thing if I were to do it with your foot. or with your hair. You would be able to recognize where your body is without actually visually seeing it or relying on other sensory systems. You're really just relying on the joints and the ligaments of the bones and everything like that. Our vestibular system is also another one that we don't really talk about. Vestibular is usually spoken about in regards to concussions because it's very much related to our balance reaction. So it has to do with the little tiny hairs that are inside of our ear. And they have to move in a certain way. And if they're not moving in the correct way, we can be clumsy, we can be running into things, just kind of unaware of, again, your body in space, but more so related to balance than to the joints and the ligaments, if that makes sense. Okay, so sensory is a complicated thing. Every child is different. Every human is different. As we go through these things, you will probably find as a parent, you have some interesting sensory quirks, I guess we'll call them. So the best way to work on sensory is just to incorporate more sensory input into your day. This could be as simple as literally changing your diet. So that could be maybe introducing a lot of crunchy foods. So you need that jaw and your teeth working to feel like you've gotten a workout in with those muscles of the mouth. So it could be, eating pretzels, eating cucumbers, I think there's nuts in this picture as well. It could also be eating maybe chewy things. So maybe you need like a piece of gum or you need something else to occupy your muscles so you can focus on something else. More on the realm of sensory would be things that you can do that are moving your body. So as you can see in the top two pictures, the children are working with dried rice. So that dried rice is giving that tactile input. And then you can obviously work on more fine motor skills with that. So they're using tongs, they're using cups to scoop, they're pronating, they're supinating their hands just to get everything, all of those skills in there while also getting additional sensory input. Another easy one to do is animal walks. So this could be as simple as your child wakes up from bed, they will go from their bedroom to the kitchen for breakfast. When they go from the bedroom to the kitchen, they're going to walk like a bear. Then once breakfast is done, they have to go to the bathroom, they have to brush their teeth, they're going to jump like a frog down the hallway. So those are just easy, simple ones that you can do to add more movement into their day. It could be as simple as when they're waiting for the bus, they're going to ride their bicycle around in a circle rather than standing in one spot because that's really difficult for them. And even the little boy on the bottom, he's standing on something that's a little unsteady and he's actually holding something that's weighted. This could be as simple as, have your child pull the laundry basket down the hallway or have them push the laundry basket. It's just giving them some additional heavy work or additional muscle input so that they can help to regulate themselves. This is similar to like us as adults. We find sometimes we really need to exercise. We really got to feel whatever, endorphins we get from that. That's usually some form of sensory input. Or we know when we need something sweet because that's how our body is feeling. Or we know we need a piece of gum because it will help us focus better. These are all coping strategies that we've learned over the years. And in turn, we're just giving kids more opportunities to explore and understand kind of what's going on. Again, these are all very simple examples. We're going to go over other things. You've also probably heard people talk about sensory diets. Sensory diets are really tailored to kids specific and have more structure to them. So they go over, okay, you do this before breakfast, you do this after breakfast, you do this during school hours at 10 o'clock, then you do this before lunch, then you do this before getting on the bus again. Those are really tailored by an occupational therapist and with parent input as well. But they really are, again, just adding more sensory input into a child's day. Okay, so this is kind of what a typical sensory diet, sensory profile looks like. I apologize, these are kind of blurry, but This is really to be done with the help of an occupational therapist and the parents' input. But if you can tell, there's just different items that you will input that will help the child either become calmer or to be more alerting. So for example, with vision, if you find your child gets really overstimulated by, flashing lights of a siren or the TV, maybe your, visual calming strategy is to look at a glitter bottle, right? So they can just turn it, they can flip it, that kind of calms them down. On the other end of the line, it could be that your child needs to be more alert. They need to be alert when they're doing their homework. They're slumping in their chair. Maybe they get to watch, firework video on YouTube, or they get to, I don't know, play with a toy that has a lot of flashing lights on it, whatever it might be, to get them to be more alert. So this really talks about what areas your child needs more things of and what they need less of, so that they kind of stay within that homeostasis of functioning when they're playing, when they're at school, when they're engaging in their activities of daily living as well. So this really, again, just kind of goes over all the different systems and what your specific child needs. When your child is older, such as, in second grade and above, they're much better at articulating what their body needs, or we give them the vocabulary and the tools to do this. Whereas our kids that are a little bit younger, our preschoolers, our kindergartners, we really need to structure it for them. And we have to play a lot of give and take with what's going to work, what's not going to work. So that's really everything on sensory. Sensory is also very much linked to behavior. Again, an occupational therapist will be able to differentiate between the two with some simple questions, but there is also a little bit of a difference there as well. All right. So now we're going to get into the actual good stuff, basically. So there's plenty of activities that you can do. Many of these activities I gathered from a bunch of resources, some OT specific, some mom specific, some just very general. I am not a very arts and crafts type person, but I'm sure you could find a lot of activities that will involve arts and crafts that will help with a lot of different skills. What the next couple of slides are going to talk about are the milestones that you should be looking for with certain age groups, and then activities that can help with those milestones. That doesn't necessarily mean that a child who is 6 can't do an activity that is meant for a 3-year-old. Again, any kind of play, any kind of activity is going to be helpful, especially now that our kids really like to enjoy screens a lot. So this is really trying to move away from screen time and getting them to engage with their peers, engage with materials, and understand kind of what is in their world around them. So the activities that I have listed here are activities that can benefit every child, regardless of age, regardless of ability. These are all things that really help with many foundational skills. So this includes swimming. It's warm out now. Swimming is a great activity for them. It's also great just for safety in general for swimming. Songs and rhymes as well are just always a great tool. Reading, also great. We know they're not in school, so they're not getting structured reading, but even if you're asking them to read the street signs, or you're asking them to read the playground equipment instructions, whatever it might be, just incorporating those small pieces of reading is going to be beneficial. Arts and crafts, obviously, if you have lots of supplies, arts and crafts are great. Water play as well. So whether it be in a water table, whether it be in puddles from after a rainstorm, using cups in the water, using sponges in the water, using squirt bottles, those are all helpful. And then, of course, going to the playground tackles a lot of those things. There's a lot of different skills within the playground. This is another thing just to keep in mind. I can give you a better copy of this. This is just one that I pulled from the internet, but I have an actual downloaded copy. One of the easiest things to do is, obviously, kids are creatures of habit, so are adults. We like to do the same things over and over again. this is a way to make it so that it's just challenging a little bit more of your systems. So whether it be laying on your stomach and coloring, whether it be being in a half kneel, so that's when, you know, one leg is up, one leg is down at the top picture, and you're going to do a puzzle. So then you really have to hold the puzzle up, you have to, you know, be balancing, and you have to find all the pieces. Squatting as well. So that could be with water play, we're squatting into the puddle, we're pouring. Again, just challenging all different muscles. Because I'm sure, as you've noticed, when kids are in school, they sit at a desk. When you're an adult, you sit at a desk all the time. So it's just nice to change up the positions to get different muscles working. Side sitting, tall kneeling, long leg sitting, and then of course on all fours or hands and knees are just some other positions. So again, these can be done with, you know, say your child loves to play with their cars on their car table, see if they'll do it in hands and knees versus standing, or see if they'll do it in tall kneeling, which is 2 knees on the ground versus sitting in crisscross applesauce. So it's just a way to vary the activities that your kids already like to do. All right, so I'm going to go over some preschool milestones. Preschool is really, I should say, all of these skills have a wide range. So if you realize your child is not doing this at 5, don't panic. These are a big range. This is probably the biggest range of skills that children will acquire. It becomes more of an issue when the school district starts to say something or they're really far behind. So it's like, you know, if you have a 5-year-old and they are not able to flip a page in a book, then we have some problems. But give your children some space and ability to learn these skills. I will also talk a little bit about some speech skills and some gross motor skills. I'm not an expert in either of those things, but I wanted to add them in just to the milestones to be aware of those things as well. So our preschool milestones for ages about 3 to about 5, right before they're going into kindergarten, would include being able to string beads, stabilizing a paper when they're coloring with it, building a tower of about 9 blocks tall, cutting paper, whether that be snipping, whether that be cutting on a straight line, curved line, being able to ride a tricycle, jumping forward, kicking a large ball, naming or pointing to common objects, primarily things that are motivating for them, for whether that be food, whether it be toys, people, that kind of thing. And then we want them to be able to sit for a decent amount of time without moving. So some of the things you can do with kids who are preschool age is you're really focusing on pre-writing lines. So what that means is you're focusing on vertical, horizontal, diagonals, shapes. So circles, squares. A lot of preschools really want to push letter formation. We really want to focus on these pre-writing lines, because if kids start to write too early, they're really actually drawing rather than writing, and it can cause some issues further down the line. So as you can see, like this boy is playing tic-tac-toe. So that's a great game to play. Drawing hopscotch, right? You're doing all those nice squares. Making X's, any diagonals, also really good to establish at this point. You can build towers with things from nature. So I found a couple people who were like, yeah, we found some leaves, we found some rocks, we found some pine cones, and we tried to stack them all up. Painting on swings. I think I have a picture on the next slide of what that looks like. Using squirt bottles or sponges with paint or water. I always tell parents, if you buy a squirt bottle at the dollar store, you can have your kids clean windows. You know, they might not be the cleanest windows, but it will give them something to do. You can also add paint to them if you want to go outside. They have to obviously squeeze that. That will strengthen the hand muscles as well. Playing with mud, dirt, water, whatever it might be. Pouring it between different things, patting it into the muffin tins like this little girl is doing. Dumping it out, again, using strength. Painting with pool noodles. I want to say they were fishing with the pool noodles in this one picture, and then this other little boy is stringing the pool noodles. The hardest part is cutting pool noodles to be that small. I have some in the closet, but I didn't have time to cut them. So anything with the pool noodles, you can pinch the pool noodle as well and dab it in paint, and then you can create pictures as well. Okay, so this is going on to our kindergartners. So these are really 5 and 6-year-olds. So this is where we should be able to notice that the child is able to print their name, probably towards the end of kindergarten, and they're able to draw a picture of at least 3 objects. One of those should include a person with about 5 features. So probably like a head and a body and arms and legs and probably some facial features, or just objects within their world. They might not be the clearest of pictures, but you're able to at least kind of see what's happening in the picture, basically. They are able to complete interlocking puzzles. So not necessarily insert, but interlocking, walking on a balance beam. They can skip. They remain on task for closer to 5 minutes, if not 10 minutes. And they stay on topic during conversation, and they obviously are participating in conversation a little bit more. All right, so this is the one with the painting on the swings. So you can either do it with your hands, you can do it with your feet. It's getting a lot of vestibular input because they're moving. It's getting a lot of strength, core stabilization. Obstacle courses are my favorite thing to do because you can use whatever you have laying around. Obviously, this boy's going up the slide instead of down the slide, which I really like. Any kind of ball games, so that eye-hand coordination is important for both kicking, rolling, throwing, two-handed, one-handed, behind, all those kinds of things. Sidewalk chalk, obviously also a good thing to have. There was things about memory games. So like instead of using just memory cards, you could use like 2 rocks, or you could use 2 leaves, and you have to cover them with cups, and then you have to reveal them and remember where they are. So there's a lot of different things that you could use without any kind of setup, as long as you are out in nature. All right, so in 1st and 2nd grade, they're able to print numbers. They can cut out complex pictures with their scissors. They identify look-alike words. Instead of walking or being slower in obstacle courses, they can run through them. They can choose the main idea from a spoken story, not necessarily reading, but if you tell them a story, they could tell you what the main idea is. And then, of course, they're able to play and work without disturbing others. So without disturbing adults, without disturbing their peers. This is also when they gain a lot more strength. So like they're able to do a full sit-up or a full push-up as well. Again, just a bunch of things. This one is more focusing on letters, right? So they found a bunch of things in nature and they were making the letters. So it's just the outdoor alphabet. This could be as simple as they're driving in the car. You're going to ask them to find whatever, 3 trees with, I don't know, birdhouses, whatever it might be. Putting clothespins on their swing sets. So they're just pulling the clothespins off. Animal walks, again, like I had mentioned earlier, are one of my favorite things to do because they are easy and time consuming and they tire kids out. So bear walking, frog jumping, crab walking, elephant stomps, starfish jumps, all of those are all really good. There was also a lot of things about recycling. So you can use bottles, old bottles, fill them with varying types of water, have them, create them. They can go bowling with them. You could throw rings on them, all those kinds of things. Hammering golf tees into styrofoam was also another one. Again, just developing that eye-hand coordination. And then, of course, water balloons or just playing with balloons in general is also good for eye-hand coordination. All right, so our older kids here, 3rd and 4th grade, they are playing or being active for longer periods of time. They follow a dance routine. They can tie shoes, they can button, they can zipper, they use letter sounds correctly. They're starting to become a little bit more aware of other people as well. So this is where it gets a little more creative. They can play a lot of blacktop games, whether that be hopscotch, foursquare, things along those lines. Red light, green light, they can become a little bit more cooperative. So like Red Rover, all the other ones if you have a big group of children. I liked decorating a bike or a wagon as well. I thought that was fun because it's a little bit arts and crafts. It's outside. It takes a little bit more critical thinking. This other one is water balloon volleyball at the bottom, which again, I thought was fun. It's just a twist on using water bottles. And then of course, the one with the ice cube trays is you can take whatever toys that are pretty small and all plastic of your children's and put them in either an ice cube tray or put them in like a plastic Tupperware, fill it with water, put it in the freezer, and then you take it out and it's frozen and they have to use hammers, they have to use whatever, old toothbrushes, whatever it might be to release the toy from the ice block. Again, that can be used with preschoolers, can be used with kindergartners. All of these can be upgraded and downgraded for your child's ability level. Okay, middle school, lots of growing. Their body is physically growing more than their brain. You can notice that they become a little bit more awkward, probably a little bit more uncoordinated. They do get better with sports. They get better at team sports. They can memorize information. And then they also kind of start to, test out their different personalities and their styles. Middle school activities were a little bit more challenging, but again, these are going to rely on a lot more cognitive skills. So whether that be like a spike ball, a cornhole, can jam, you could play tic-tac-toe with frisbees. I liked a lot of the things that were like related to a Rube Goldberg machine. So that's kind of where you send the ball down and it has to make it through its whole path. Or just, creating a solar oven, that's something they could be really proud of. And I'm sure you probably have cardboard boxes from Amazon laying around that you can use to build those kinds of things. But this is really where they, kind of start to get away from parent directed activities and they start to really create more things on their own. Obviously, paper airplanes, great for working on bilateral hand coordination and throwing skills and all of those lovely things. Not to say you can't do a lot of these things, the other activities with middle schoolers, but they will probably find ways to make the activities that are meant for younger kids a little bit more challenging for them. Okay. I feel like I went through that very fast, but I apologize. So like I said, I'm Heidi. I am a pediatric OT. We are in the hospital. We're up on the 4th floor. That's our contact number. And then that is my email address. If you are calling our contact number, if you press option 2, you will get our front desk. If you do feel like you need occupational therapy services, we do require a prescription from the doctor. That is the biggest thing that we need. Like I said, these are just a bunch of resources that I found. Pinterest also has a plethora of things. There was probably 64 activities you could do with pool noodles. But obviously I'm not going to list all of them here. So these are just some websites that I used that I like. Again, anyone can access them. Some of the items on like the OT Toolbox or Tools to Grow or Teachers Pay Teachers do require payment, but they do have a lot of options that are also free. It just might not be the whole suite of activities, basically. Okay. I was almost at 45 minutes, but we can open it up for questions now.
If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop it in the Q&A box and then we will repeat it out loud for everybody to hear.
So I'll ask a question to kind of get us started. So when it comes to, working with an OT and maybe some people that might be watching this or people that are on right now might have kids that are in OT or looking into possibly getting OT therapies. How often do kids need OT? And do you think, starting the sooner the better?
So the earlier the intervention, the better. Some kids, if they are receiving services within the school district, that's enough for them to kind of suffice for the school year. If they are still really struggling with a lot of things, then we could recommend additional occupational therapy. I will say a lot of the summer months, I will get a lot of students that receive OT during the school year. and parents want to make sure that they maintain a lot of those skills. So they'll come see me for services as well. So it really just depends on what the students' needs are, what the kids' needs are, and what the parents are feeling they're lacking in for the most part. So it's very individualized, unfortunately, but also fortunately, because if your kid doesn't need services, we won't recommend them.
We got another question. Somebody wants to know, does swimming really help provide sensory input?
Yes, swimming is my #1 recommended activity because when you're swimming, you are very weightless. So it really requires a lot of different systems to be working. So it could be as easy as floating. It could be swimming on the surface and then diving down into the water. So that rush into the ears really is very helpful. The feeling of water itself is very calming as well. I taught swim lessons for a really long time, and I always noticed a difference with my kids when they understood how to swim on their own. And then from when they started, it built a lot of confidence. It, builds a lot of rule following, a lot of skill following, and it's my #1 thing that I tell parents to do for sure.
Well, thank you so much. You covered so much wonderful and crucial information that I feel like everyone really needs. Even adults can use a lot of those activities and ideas to keep busy over the summer. So since we didn't get any more questions, we can end here. So thank you so much for presenting and sharing all this wonderful information. We will be sharing the presentation and the resources that Heidi has provided us. So thank you all for attending and have a nice night.